afternoon. I'm Bob Margulies, a former president of the Hudson County Bar, and it's my honor on behalf of the Bar Association to interview our former assignment judge, Peter F Bariso, a longtime Hudson County lawyer and judge. Judge Bariso was admitted to the bar in 1979, and Judge, from 1979 until 2005, when you were appointed to the bench, tell us what you did.
Sure. Once I got admitted, I originally clerked for Judge Cassidy in Bergen County, and then I came to, at that time it was Lamb Hutchinson, I believe. Blake had just went on the bench, and I was fortunate enough to be an associate at Lamb's office in Jersey City on Sip Avenue from 1980, went on my own, 1980 to 1988. So I had 8 years at Lamb's office where I was fortunate enough to try a lot of cases, and before I left was certified as a civil trial attorney. Had my own office at 26 Journal Square for 88 to 95. And I merged my office with, at that time it was Chase and Lehner's office. And I was there from 205 I went on the bench, so 88 to 95. From 95 to 2005 I was a managing partner at Chasen's office of the Defense Department mostly. And practiced not just in Hudson, but had trials in federal court, so I was lucky enough to get down to Camden on occasion, and Trenton, and most of the northern counties. I think the furthest southern county I tried a case in was probably Ocean. But I trial work, working with the Hudson County Bar, working with New Jersey State Bar. I had a very active and very fruitful, almost over 40 years of practice.
So it's hard to be a trial lawyer anymore. You had the advantage of being able to actually be a trial lawyer and try cases and learn the craft.
Yes.
So much so that this past year, the New Jersey State Bar Association honored you with their highest acclamation, the Medal of Honor. So that must have been a thrill.
It was an exciting night, I have to say. And you're right, Bob, about the trial experience we had, because I'm gonna date myself, but I was fortunate that my first 3 jury trials was in district court, which is now special civil part. So as you know, the worst thing that can happen to a defense attorney is $3,000. So my first 3 jury trials, hard to believe, I had a products liability trial in district court, automobile case, and a fallback. And you're right, today it's very hard. I mean, where I am now of counsel to my old firm at Chasen's office, I will say this. Tom Marone, who's on trial right now here, has already had 9 trials to conclusion this year. So I guess the carriers are trying cases when they can get assigned out. But you're right, we were very lucky.
So in 2005, Governor Cody appointed you to the bench. In 2006, you served as the presiding judge of the civil division. You rose quickly.
Very quick.
And eventually you became the assignment judge, which is the chief administrative judge, and actually the chief judge in this vicinage.
Yes. And it's as I tell people, everyone thinks the title's wonderful to be an assignment judge, but as some of my former colleagues know, and I tell some of the newer judges, it's a very, very difficult job if you want to do it right. Because you're a judge, but you're also an administrator. And here we had 2 buildings, 12 municipal courts.
A prosecutor's office.
So it's a demanding job to do it correctly.
Well, some people have suggested it's like herding cats, right?
Yes, that's good. That's a good one.
And now you've served on, we'll get to your teaching in a moment, but you served on a number of committees, including the Conference of Assignment Judges and the Judicial Council, which is the highest group administering the courts, along with the Chief Justice. You were a member of the Advisory Committee on Expedited Civil Actions, Pretrial Subcommittee Chair, Supreme Court Special Committee on Peremptory Challenges and voir dire, Chair of a Civil Subcommittee. You were Chair of the Conference of Presiding Judges. That's all the civil presiding judges, talking about cats. The Supreme Court Arbitration Advisory Committee, which I think I served on with you. And on local committees as well, minority and arbitration here. Now, in addition to this, I was impressed that you also have taught a lot, so much so that you were awarded in, I think it was in 2015, the CLAP Award for Excellence in Continuing Education, which is the highest award that the State Bar gives out, for teaching. So, and I know, I won't go through what you've taught, but you've taught a lot.
Yes, and continue. They still, and in fact, as recently as in May at the annual meeting, they still had me doing programs. So I was fortunate enough that we actually formed a program, the Supreme Court in Review. I think I've done that, could be almost 12 years now.
So
Where we pick 3 Supreme Court justices, and one of them will pick 2 criminal cases, one picks 2 civil, and one picks 2 family, to talk about what cases they felt would have the most impact on trial courts. It's been fun.
And coining the term that my uncle old Judge Seymour Margulies, you became constitutionally senile.
Senile, that's right. I got constitutional senility, and although actually I left before that. So.
Well, now I did want to mention you went to Rutgers and you graduated magna cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society, and then you went to Rutgers Law School and got your law degree. So you really are a homegrown New Jersey native.
Yes, born and raised. A lot of people think Hudson. Unfortunately, no. I was born and raised in Patterson, but I've been in Hudson since 1980. So seems like a lifetime.
And in addition to that, while you were a judge, you had a number of 2, 4, 6 reported opinions. I can't imagine how many opinions, many opinions over those years, but it's an honor to have, that these opinions were important enough that the Committee on Opinions thought they should be reported.
It was, for a trial level, I thought it was very, they were very kind.
What I'm sort of interested in telling us is, you've seen the judges change, you've seen the lawyers change, now you've seen the law change over the past 40 years or so. Tell us a little bit about what you think makes Hudson County special. Any of your recollections that whether it was a trial or they tell the story about Izzy Michelle, to a former assignment judge who had his office across the street, and he had band leader and lawyer and he was called before the assignment judge. He immediately went over, took the lawyer off, and left the band leader. But so I mean, this can only happen in Hudson County.
And I think, you're right. We could write a book. But one thing that I really appreciate about Hudson, I think one of the biggest things from a lawyer's perspective, and having tried and appeared at calendar calls all throughout the state, one thing I will always say about Hudson, despite what people may say, no one really got special treatment here. If you answered the call and you were whatever your number was, I remember, I don't know if I heard it first from Judge Geronimo when he was handling the call, or whether I heard it from Judge Gallipoli when he, and it could have been both, I'm not sure, but I always remember them saying when my attorney, who you mentioned an office across the street, would say, "Judge, I'm going to go back to my office, Tracy or whoever can call me when the case is ready." And I always remember them saying, "That's fine, counsel, do you have a room for your adversary?" And if they were going, "No, Judge, I have a small office," he says, "Well, then you'll enjoy our lovely lawyer's lounge that we have on the 4th floor." And I always appreciated that and tried to do the same as the presiding judge and assignment judge. I did not want people to think because you were a Hudson lawyer, you somehow would get special treatment, because I felt the opposite of that. And certain counties were horrible with that. And I'm not,
we won't mention
their names. Unfortunately, both of them begin with an M, but we're not going to mention their names. And you would go down there, and I remember 4 times I had to go down there, called for a case, when I was on my own. And all 4 times, I was the only one in the room. And I was there for 2 hours and then told you can go back.
In Middlesex, Jimmy wouldn't let you out. Right?
And I remember the 4th time I went down, I said to Mr. Donato, I said, "Look, I don't mind coming here, but there's 4 parties in this case, and I'm the only one who's been here. If I come back a 5th time and the same thing happens, I'm not leaving this building until I go on the record with Judge Breikoff," because he was the assignment judge at the time. and I didn't have to go back. But that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
If you're
Well,
gonna-
fair treatment.
and that's all you ask for. I'm not saying you have to, and Passaic I also found was a little like Hudson. They were similar to that. Maybe it was the urban ones. I don't know, but I always appreciated that and tried to do that as the PJ and the AJ. But you're right. We've seen characters here over the years. When Judge Taylor was transferred here from Bergen, Izzy Michelle, we mentioned before, showed up with his plastic flower and sang "Welcome to Hudson County." I don't know where he got the words from. I don't know what tune it was. We all sat there with the call. I got assigned to Judge Taylor for a trial, and he walks in and just serenades the judge for like 3 minutes. But everybody laughed, but they appreciated it, and then you got to work.
Yeah.
But and as young lawyers, as I said, we learned a lot from practicality. We were sent out to try cases. We tried small claims. We tried district court. And we had jury trials. As you said, today it's hard to get experience as a young attorney. We were very fortunate, and we had good judges. I mean, over the years, look at we had Judge Italia was the assignment judge. Actually, Judge O'Brien was the assignment judge when I first came over to Hudson. Then we had Judge Italia. I remember Judge Tarleton sitting here in Chancery. I used to do the fifth graders because I was a Board of Ed attorney. The judges here in Hudson welcomed that. I'd bring 40 to 50 students, and they'd be happy to have them come in their courtroom. And not one judge, each year I would try to go to a different judge. Not once did I ever approach a judge in Hudson who said, no, I don't have time for that. So I always thought, and the bar and the judges were always close here in Hudson. I missed the North Hudson lawyer dinners at Schutzen Park when I first came as a new lawyer. I was totally amazed that lawyers would do that. I had no idea. And it was just fascinating, and I've learned a lot.
Tell us about, you've been an active member of the Hudson County Bar for all these years. Tell us a little bit about your perceptions of the Hudson Bar, what it means to the bar and to the community.
Yeah, I think that's very important because I think our bar association really cares about the community. Perfect example, I just got Kathy's email, was it this week, about Bayonne for the Thanksgiving, raising funds for the Thanksgiving baskets? Yes. I mean, I don't think a holiday goes by that our bar association, Christmas time, you have the tree, we bring presents, you identify the groups for people who's going to get the presents. I've always tried, took me 9 years before I finally got a teacher at Dickinson to bring students to the courthouse. It's up the hill. But then the students came, and we tried to show them it's not just being a judge or a lawyer. The judiciary has a realm of opportunities. And I just think that's the nice thing about the bar. We care about each other.
Well,
we care about the community and the committees.
Yeah. How about the memorial service?
Speaking of the memorial service, are we having one?
November 19th.
Okay. And the reason why I'm asking, you could edit this, the reason why I'm asking, I had dinner with our friend, Judge Galopoli.
I was with him yesterday.
And he says to me, what's going on with the memorial program? I said, did you forget that I retired? And I didn't know, so that's good.
The email came yesterday.
That's one of the best events. I wish the attendance hopefully will be better. Because I did have a problem my last couple of years, as you recall. I said it's not nice when we had more people in robes than suits. But the judges were always there. I hope they do. I hope my successor does the same thing and clears calendars so everybody can be there. And it's sad now because I guess I'm at that stage where before I would only know 1 or 2 people on the list. Now I know the whole list. But we're one of the few. I think we're one of the few bars that have that.
Essex does it, but I don't think they do it like we do.
Do they have the memorial stone like we have?
No.
I think we're the only ones.
They have a plaque.
I think we're the only ones that have that.
Yeah. So tell us about whether it was an opinion you wrote or a trial you either tried or presided over, that you thought was Hudson County.
I'll give you 2. I'll give you one as a lawyer and one as a judge. The first one as a lawyer, many years ago when they came out with the Sexual Predator Act, where even at the end of one sentence, if they felt you were still a danger, they could civilly commit you. That's what they did. They weren't prisoners. They were civil commitments. The state decided the state had a lease with the county for, at the jail, they had the jail, the newer jail that was built, and then they had a section of the older jail that the state wanted to lease and was leasing. They were using it for
Immigration?
no, as prisoners get near the end of their sentence, when they only had like 30 days left and they were letting them out on certain days to work and whatever, be the wind down. So they 99% of them aren't going to risk anything because they have left less than a month on their time. But what would happen is the state had that lease, and now they wanted to have the predators housed there. And the state was going to put in millions of dollars in terms of security, etc. And there was a section of Hudson County that took offense to that and did not want it. So I had to try that case in front of Judge Gallipoli. And what made it interesting was the political element in Hudson, the county exec, and I think Carney, in fact, Judge Santos was the mayor at the time, wanted to fight it vigorously, but their fight was based more on not in my backyard. And I was trying to explain to the powers to be, that's not how you want to try this case. A, it was a non-jury trial. B, we had a good judge who could see through arguments, and you're not going to win on that. I said, we have a contract, it's a lease. The lease provides they have to house prisoners. The new statute says they're not prisoners. So the way you win, it's a breach of the lease. We won the case ultimately. Judge Gallipoli did rule in our favor after several days of trial, but unfortunately the governor signed an executive order and the sexual predators came to Hudson, and the rest was history. But that was an interesting case as a lawyer. As a judge, I had the conversion therapy case.
Oh, right.
I tried that case.
Why don't you say what that is for those who don't?
The conversion therapy case is turning gay people straight. That's pretty much what their motto was.
What the conversion was.
Conversion was. And in this case, the group called Jonah was based in Jersey City. Apparently, I was not aware of some of the background. The Southern Poverty Law Center had been searching jurisdictions because this was expanding nationwide at the time, and there was a lot of uneasiness with some of the techniques that were being used for this conversion therapy. And
this was before same-sex marriage.
yes, and no, this was after.
Oh, after?
This was after.
Oh, okay.
Because this was when I was the assignment judge, I tried the case. And so they targeted New Jersey, they saw this, and this was I'm trying to think what his name was. I think it was Rosenberg, now I'm not sure. But they called him rabbi, but he wasn't a rabbi. And basically, the Southern Poverty Law Center and the law firm that they hired in New York, that they tried it together, they pretty much, this group, Jonah, preyed on the Orthodox Jewish community, particularly from New York, but there were some from New Jersey. And they had these young men, and they would, I don't even know how, it's almost impossible. You'd have to, one of the reported opinions would explain to you the background. We don't have time for the whole background, but suffice it to say, they were challenging it on consumer fraud because the group Jonah advertised and professed as being a group that can convert you from being a homosexual to a heterosexual. But their problem was they premised it on the theory that homosexuality was a medical disorder. And that's what 4 of their 5 experts based their opinion on. However, as the Southern Poverty Law Center pointed out, the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the British Medical Association, the British Psychiatric, most of them, all years earlier, had said it is not a medical disorder. So of course they were mad that I barred 4 of their 5 experts. They had a firm from California try the case, very conservative, I guess one of the conservative groups hired for the defense group. And it was a jury trial. It took painstaking effort, but it worked to keep it as a consumer fraud. I said to them from the beginning, we're not going to, this is not a national trial, We are not here to determine what homosexuality is or isn't. Simple case, it's consumer fraud, this is the charge, and the jury's gonna determine whether it's consumer fraud or not. And it took some teeth pulling, but it worked. First time we did called in 200 jurors for a special voir dire. We did the voir dire in the jury room because it was very sensitive. We had questions prepared, the initial questions for the whole array, and then once we narrowed it down to about 40 or 50, then we went to more specific questions. So that was very interesting for me. And technology, because of all the good law firms involved, everything came with preloaded laptops. I got my laptop, everything was loaded on, all of their stuff, big screen TVs. They were a little mad because they wanted one for the jury and one for the audience. I said, this is not a show, we're not at the paper mill, we're not having a TV for the audience. You got a 70-inch screen, I think people can see it from the benches. And that was about a 3.5-week trial. And the jury came back and they found that it was consumer fraud and treble damages, attorney's fees. They ultimately reached a settlement that they breached. But that had some issues in it that I never thought I would see or hear. I mean, just some of the techniques. Very quickly, if you want one of the techniques.
Sure.
They called them life coaches, whatever that means. There's no certifications, they just called themselves life coaches. There were 2 of them.
These are the ones that could do this conversion therapy.
Yes, they were gonna do the local ones. And one of them was allegedly gay, but he now is married and is straight. So here's what one of the young men testified to. They would go to this gentleman's office or whatever, and they'd have to remove an article of clothing and talk about, each time they removed an article of clothing, talk about something bad in their life until they were essentially naked. And the idea is, what did they call it? Body shame. And now you have this young man standing in front of a mirror after he tells his stories as if going to a therapist, and is crying because now what are they doing? They're telling everything terrible that happened in their life, and this guy's with them. And one of the mothers, when she found out that what was going on, she testified. She was appalled. And she still referred to Rosenberg as a rabbi, and she would say, I can't believe the rabbi let them do this. And it was really, some of the testimony was tough. But and then there was a young man who said, I refuse to do that. I said, I'm not doing that. What does that got to do with what we're trying to do here? And it was tough. They would have them beat pillows, have them envision that their mother's face was on the pillow, because that was another theory too, that if you were very close to your mother and you didn't have a father figure in your life, these were the reasons you're gay. I mean, it was utter, in my humble opinion, some of the stuff I had to listen to was utter nonsense. And I give the jury credit. They paid attention the whole time. Everybody showed up. It was incredible. It was, we had, a lot of press coverage, so we had to have special sections in the courtroom. We had one section for plaintiffs, family members, etc., another section for the defendants, section for the press, because several people were coming in the beginning too. And it was...
it sounded like that would, that experience made a real impression on you.
Yeah, I mean, you read about things, you read articles and you wonder, but when you have people taking a stand, putting their hand on a Bible, or I don't use a Bible, just taking an oath, and now you're hearing this testimony, you're like, I didn't know there was a show on the Learning Channel, TLC, called My Husband Used to Be Gay. They brought in one of the people from the show. If you listen to their testimony, this was the best thing for me. I know I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. The best thing for me was my court clerk is on my left, and the jury box in the assignment judge's courtroom is to the right. Fortunately, I set my laptop up this way, so that as I was trying to look at things, it would give me a reason to turn away from the juror, because some of the actual testimony, you didn't know whether you wanted to just laugh just say, and the best thing, and hardest thing for me when I first came on the bench was just learning to keep my mouth shut. And thank God I could face away from the, because that's what I was always afraid of. I would say to the lawyers, you know, the people who are going to decide this case like me a lot better than they like you already. So you better be, you better listen to what. But I would just say that, and most lawyers listen. But I did not want my facial expression to ever be seen by a jury because, especially that trial. Thank God I could look at Kathy and we could do this, what you and I are doing now, without the jury seeing us, because it was some of the testimony just was just. I don't think I would ever hear it again. That's really what we had to listen to was just.
Tell me about some of your heroes. I mean, you had some mentors, you had good friends. Who were your heroes, and do you recall any of the older lawyers who are no longer with us who made an impression on you?
I will tell you, I was very fortunate that I had very good mentors in my career. Starting with the judge I clerked for, Judge Cassidy, J.M. Cassidy in Bergen. He taught me a rule that most people really should learn, and what goes around comes around. And that was, I think, for a lawyer, I try to tell the lawyers, to actually in any role in life, but especially as a lawyer, like I would have motions and I would say to people, I know you have the upper hand this time, but maybe we should try to see if I was to bend over this way, what do you need to even the playing field? And most lawyers would, but every once in a while, if you got one, and that's what Judge Cassidy would say, hey, if you got somebody who wants to play by the rules all the time, it's very simple. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Tom Chappell, when I first got to Lamb's office, I know very different kind of character, but if you had a Superior Court trial when he was the managing partner, when I first went there, he was the managing partner. You had to review it with him a week before. And you better know your file, because he would ask you how you're going to do this, how you're going to do that, why are you calling this one, why are you calling that. And at first I thought that would be, what a pain this is, why do I have to do this? And then I learned how fascinating and how good that was to do. And I tried to do that when I was the managing partner at Chasen's office. I tried to emulate that. When you had a Superior Court trial in the Defense Department, I would say, let's talk about it. I want to know, are you ready? What do you intend to do? Obviously, Maurice Gallipoli he became the managing partner at Lamb's office, so he was my boss there. And then when I came on the bench, he was my boss here. I would say I try to emulate about 75% of Judge Gallipoli. But again, an excellent mentor, Ed DePascal. I met Herb Winokur. I remember Herb was one of the first cases I had. And I thought for sure we would win on the statute of limitations. I was ready to make a motion. And I remember Ed DePascal saying to me, there's never 100% guarantee. And Mr. Winokur is, he's a good adversary, a good friend, and you should try to see if there's a way of working it out. And I think we worked the case out under $5,000. And every time I saw Herb Winokur, I was not, when I moved to 26 Journal Square, Alex Kushner and Craig, Kravitsky and Springer were there. They would go to the Casa Dante like every other day.
The fancy restaurant on the street.
So I would go maybe once a month if I did that. But whenever I went, if Herb Winokur was there, they never paid for lunch. That's Hudson. I don't think you would see that anywhere else. And even before he passed away, he took me over to the Palm restaurant because he wanted to show me his caricature on the
wall.
Herb. So I think, there's more.
And the point is, he was a plaintiff's lawyer.
He was a plaintiff's lawyer.
And you were a
I was a
defense lawyer.
defense lawyer. And most of them, Alex Kushner, they took me in when I left Lamb's office because I wanted to go on my own. Things weren't working out as well as I was hoping they would. Maurice had left at the time. He went on the bench in '87. I left in '88. They brought me right in, and I shared space with Alex and Craig. I shared their library, their copy. I didn't have to buy anything except furniture, and then he would include everything in the lease. And we got. I can't think of a plaintiff's attorney that I had never. I would say we never spoke, and it was that good. It was that good.
So it sounds like you've had a fulsome career in Hudson. I've
Oh, I'm
often
very
said
lucky.
that if you could practice here, you could probably
Oh,
practice.
absolutely. Yeah, my
anywhere.
first PJ just walked in, and you couldn't ask for a better boss when you first came on the bench.
Must be Judge Massano
Must
who
be
we're going
Judge
to talk to
Massano.
next.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about Judge Massano since he's going to be interviewed next.
No, he was my PJ. I remember calling him up. I was on the bench. I got sworn in on January 7th, I believe. It was a Friday. On Monday, I was in the administration building across the hall from Maurice, Judge Gallipoli. I met my court clerk. I don't think I had a yellow pad. We were just trying to figure things out. And two lawyers walk into the courtroom, and my court clerk says, "Do you have a trial?" So I called my new boss, Judge Massano, and I said, "They said I have a trial." And Judge Massano says, "Yeah. How many trials have you had as a lawyer?" He says, "I think you can handle it." So that's today. You'd get 3 weeks of training. Back then, we had just got sent to trial, and so it was a learning experience. Learning to keep my mouth shut. Really, that was the hardest thing, I think, Bob. Being my first year on the bench, that was the hardest. Was
Now, in your
being quiet. On the
in
bench.
your semi-retirement, you said you went back to the used to be Chase and Later, now Chase and Lamparella firm, and tell us what you're doing.
Well, now I'm doing 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I enjoy working with the attorneys on their files, but to help the firm in terms of, I guess, income, I do mediations. I try not to do more than 1 or 2 a week. One would be preferable. And I also do some special master assignments, although I have to admit that I have a feeling that I'm going to start saying no. But it's fun. I like working with the attorneys, and I like being the mentor that I was very lucky to have all those years. You know, pay it forward, so to speak.
I think that's important because what I notice, I had mentors too, but a lot of the young lawyers don't have mentors, and that shows up in the way they don't know how to deal with other people. Between that and the technology, you know, the emails as opposed to a conversation.
That's the hardest thing. I heard that all the time. On motion days, I would say to the attorneys, "Do you not speak to each other?" And they would tell you. They had no hesitation to say, "We only communicate by email." I go, "That's the problem." I mean, I knew all of my adversaries. I mean, I'm not saying that we loved each other, but we should. One trial in all those years of practice. Only one trial my adversary didn't shake my hand. And then later on, we were friends. So I think that's how it should. We're not, as I've said in my programs, this isn't combat. We're supposed to be the example to the people out there that you resolve your grievances, you resolve your differences according to the law, not who can scream louder, who can outpaper the other person.
So as a Hudson County lawyer, give us your best words of wisdom.
Keep the faith. Just try to go back. I hate to say go back to the old days because they weren't that old. It wasn't that long ago. I don't know. I just hope we can get back to where lawyers get along better, are better prepared, and practice better, because that to me is the biggest concern I have is keeping the profession a profession.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.